Breaking news. Train to Duluth, war in Ukraine, and Allina. The peace movement as a whole needs to give some serious consideration to the situation in Ukraine. Anti-war activists split on Ukraine, front page, June 5, and Russia won't back down, readers write, June 6. The Ukrainian people are not considered in the protests against military aid from the Biden administration and calls for a ceasefire. It's condescending to dismiss Ukrainians as pawns in a conflict between the United States, NATO and Russia, when they've clearly decided to fight back against the invasion with all their might. The Ukrainian people, not the American peace movement, have the ultimate say in whether or not their country goes to war. If peace is achieved without Russia's full withdrawal, and against Ukraine's wishes, my fellow peace activists should be aware that other neighboring nations will be in Russia's sights. China is currently monitoring international reactions to Russia. If the world gives Ukraine to Russia, China will likely target Taiwan next. The peace movement will not achieve its goals by granting Russia a partition in an effort to end the war. There's a bigger problem at hand. The global rise of fascism necessitates immediate action. Russian President Vladimir Putin is a fascist. To put it bluntly, Xi Jinping is a fascist. According to former Tea Party Congressman Joe Walsh in 2022, the Republican Party in the United States has been barreling toward full-on fascism. It was to oppose domestic fascists like Richard Nixon that groups like Women Against Military Madness and Veterans for Peace were originally formed. To turn around and start fighting with them at home and abroad would be incredibly naive of us. The reason the Russians won't back down is because, consider why the Ukrainians aren't giving up. During the 1930s, millions of Ukrainians were starved by Joseph Stalin, and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, were killed by the dictator during and after World War II. For modern Ukrainians, this isn't just a relic from the past. The Ukrainians have no reason to back down, do they? A warning about the importance of sending the right signals on Ukraine when dealing with Russia was published in a newspaper editorial on Monday. This is shown by the claim that President Trump's treatment of the U.S. ambassador during the impeachment process gave Russian President Vladimir Putin reason to believe that the United States would not back Ukraine in a conflict with Russia because it would not be able to come together in a meaningful way. The board may be right about the importance of sending the right signals when dealing with Putin, but it is being dishonest when it says that Putin's invasion in 2022 was triggered by how the ambassador was treated during the impeachment, as well as other things. Even though the board doesn't tell its readers what those other things are that indicate the U.S. isn't committed to supporting Ukraine in the event of a Russian attack, the answer is obvious given recent events. Russia invaded the Crimean Peninsula in March of 2014, and the United States did not respond in any significant way because President Barack Obama was afraid of starting a war with Russia and thus refused to provide Ukraine with lethal weapons. Obama's response was to send blankets after Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine declared independence and occupied the Donbass region with the help of Russian troops, tanks, and artillery. The board's editorial failed to mention that Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2014 was merely a prelude to the full-scale invasion that began in 2022 and is still ongoing, or that the U.S. signaled to Putin that it would not defend Ukraine if attacked by Russia in 2014 by failing to provide Ukraine with the weapons it needed. A member of Veterans for Peace recently wrote a letter arguing against U.S. support for Ukraine and advocating for immediate negotiation to end the war, citing two main points. A. Russia had good reasons to invade Ukraine, and B. If we don't stop now, Russia's moody funk will just fester until it explodes into World War III, just like Germany did after the Treaty of Versailles. The problem with these historical arguments is that there is an infinite number of possible interpretations of human history. If you pick one cherry off that tree, I can find another one. For instance, the activist's letter is representative of a widespread effort by some Americans to prevent the United States from joining World War II. The arguments were always sympathetic to the authoritarian aggressor, just like they are today. While the author claims, we would all like to see a Russian withdrawal, this is clearly not the case for the vast majority of Americans who are opposed to this war. Putin and his religious, anti-LGBT authoritarian regime are held in high esteem by the Make America Great Again (MAGA) movement, which sees Russia as the vanguard of a new world that will triumph over the decadent, godless West. See, it's not that easy. When it comes to war, however, it's always 2003 or 1965 for some on the American left, which, on almost all other issues, includes me. Veterans for Peace, however, are strongly urged by me to stop dwelling in the past and start enjoying the present. Even though Allina Health was fined $16 million for questionable billing practices in the early 2000s, Allina cuts care for patients who owe. Front page, June 2. Little seems to have changed in the company's corporate culture. Ex-Attorney General Mike Hatch claimed that Allina spent money on things like image consultants, spa days, and golfing as part of its administrative budget. Patients with outstanding balances of $4,500 or more are currently being denied access to Allina's clinics. Perhaps this organization needs more healthcare professionals in leadership roles to make patient care a moral priority. Repetitive of existing options. Legislators' decision to fund the Northern Lights Express and a second daily Amtrak train to Chicago has disappointed me. Train to Duluth gets a $195 million nudge, June 5. The one-way fare for a trip on the Northern Lights Express between Duluth and the Twin Cities is estimated to be $30 to $35. However, a one-way trip on a Jefferson Lines bus costs only $25 and takes only 2.5 hours. In a similar vein, a one-way ticket on Amtrak from Chicago to the Twin Cities will set you back $95 and take 8 hours, while the equivalent Jefferson Lines bus ticket will set you back around $53 and take 7.5 hours. One person in a car can make both trips more quickly and cheaply by driving alone, and more people can share the costs of gas by traveling together. Even though there is now a second daily train to Chicago, the Northern Lights Express does not significantly improve upon the already convenient transportation options in the Twin Cities. The people of Minnesota would benefit more from an investment in a high-speed rail line that links the Twin Cities to Madison, Milwaukee, and Chicago.